Welcome back. We are excited always to have this conversation every couple of weeks. This one even more exciting. I have two wonderful guests in the studio. It's Nikki Bravo, who's the co-founder of Momentum Coffee, and Jerry,
Aglipai.
I was going to mess it up, Aglipai, senior fellow at the Small Business Majority.
Yes.
Okay, that's new, different, interesting. Nikki, rather than I, introduce yourself to the folks.
All right. So I am Nikki Bravo, co-owner and co-founder of Momentum Coffee. And Momentum Coffee is rooted in community, powered by coffee. And I also serve as the a member of the Small Business Majorities National Business Council.
Fantastic. What do people, I'm going to do this first. What do people find Momentum Coffee?
Momentum Coffee, we have 4 locations where we're serving great coffee, tea, pastries, and sandwiches. We're in the South Loop at 2119 South State Street. We're also in Millennium Park at 11 North Michigan. We're also in the Garfield Park Conservatory, 300 North Central Park.
Okay.
And we're in the Austin community inside the Build Youth and Community Center at 5100 West Harrison.
Fantastic. And if anybody's listening and has any influence, we'd love for them to be at O'Hare Airport. Jerry, tell us about yourself.
Hi, I'm Jerry Aglipai. I'm a senior fellow for policy and research on small business and workforce at the Small Business Majority. Nikki is our council member, one of our council members nationally. We are a nonprofit 501c3 organization that just celebrated its 20th year, advocating for small business policies, leveling the field, and actually advancing equity and making sure that our policies structurally create a level playing field.
Well, Jerry, I've decided you're extraordinarily influential. You have a teenager up and with you in the studio this early in the morning.
I
which
do
means
have a
you've got
teenager with
power.
me. I
You've
woke
got-
her up and made sure she was up at 5:30 in the morning and said, "Oh, you can go back to sleep. Traffic's not that bad."
Okay, you only get to tell that one time. But good you're here. Good you both are here. Good she's here too. You've traveled down to Springfield last week to call on lawmakers to pass HB 744 and HA number 1, the Small Business Financing Transparency Act. Talk to us more about what's in that bill.
That legislation actually asks for lenders in Illinois, non-bank lenders that operate online, to disclose the APR, annual percentage rate. We receive the APR for our credit cards. You get it when you're looking for cars, student loans, mortgages, but small business owners, actually, the APR is not required to be disclosed to small business owners. So they can't compare apples to apples when they're shopping. And what happens is we've got online predatory lenders. They're not all bad, but a lot that are actually preying upon minorities, people of color, women, and those in rural areas, targeting them because they don't have to disclose the APR, and they're unable to then make payments a lot of times. And because of that non-disclosure, we want to pass this law in Illinois. It's not asking to do away with other ways they're calculating how they make payments. It's not asking them to cap interest rates. It's simply to disclose APR in their terms before people sign. What happens is that we're finding a lot of small business owners, and Nikki and I have met them, who've paid well over 80% to 400%. And during COVID, it even was as high as 4,000% because people were so desperate for money. And historically, because owners of color and women don't have that access to funding and capital, they're so desperate they turn online because it's easy. And we've seen how the banks historically have treated people of color and owners of colors of having more stringent terms. So they trust, especially online, they think it's safer.
It sounds like you said that they were charging 4,000%. That
During
must be a
COVID.
mistake in zeros.
No,
That's
there
too many
was. There is not a
zeros.
mistake in those zeros. Yeah.
And
there's
you
not.
said all of them are not bad. I'm going to leave that one right there. But
Okay.
the whole definition of predatory says something ain't right here.
Well, I was the regional administrator at the SBA in the Biden administration, and I saw it myself throughout all of the states here in the Midwest, how some of the owners that I met were caught into these predatory loans, that they were paying much more than they would, or they had automatic deductions from their point of sales or even their checking accounts. And that's what they signed up for. So even the SBA currently says these are extortionists.
Well, anybody would say those are extortionists because it, in fact, is. I mean, that's
Yeah.
greater than loan sharking. But Nikki, you're a small business owner, a growing small business owner, and excited about it. Talk about how this issue of non-transparent lending matches up with your experience navigating financing options.
Absolutely. So, as you said, small business, we're growing, and we want to stay in business, right? So, as a small business owner, we found ourselves looking for loans in order to be able to grow. And as Jerry mentioned, sometimes those options are not great, right? So we look to non-traditional lenders. In our case, we did take a merchant cash advance, an MCA, and it really touted that it was going to be, you know, quick and low cost. But what happens in those cases, or in our case, and particularly, is that it's charges a fee,
Mm.
and then there's additional costs that are there. Not that they're not telling you what it is. It's very difficult to compare it to, say, a bank loan. So you're not looking at apples and apples. So when you get out of the position where you actually step back and look at what you're paying, it's not so affordable. It's not so low cost. And that's the way that it is shown to you. I really want to highlight for small businesses because I think, well, I'm a smart person. I'm a smart business person. How do you get yourself into something where you're paying way over what you would normally do? You have to think about a small business. Most small business owners are in the position they want to bring their dream to fruition.
Mm.
You're in a vulnerable state and an excited state. And so when someone's providing you with an option, you're looking for that best option for you. And sometimes you're not looking at the bottom line. Sometimes it's couched in a way that's intentionally deceptive so that you're not able to know exactly what you're paying. Other times, business owners find themselves where they want to make payroll. They want to pay their rent. And so again, when a lender is calling you, and Rufus, I'll tell you, I get at least 20 a day phone calls. We want to fund your business. We can fund your business. We've got low cost. I can get it to you tomorrow. But because I'm on the other side and I understand, I just hang up the phone. But I can imagine that there are other small businesses that are saying, I need an option. The bank is not an option for me at this point because of where I am in my business. And they might listen. And those folks are very savvy in the way that they are presenting that funding option and lending product.
Yeah, without a doubt. And I don't need it for my business, but I'm getting the same calls. And I can only imagine that those who do need it really react. And to your point about payroll, there's nothing more important than making payroll.
Yeah.
Right.
Somebody should tell that to the government, but there's nothing more important than making payroll. And so you do what you have to make sure that your people get paid. And sometimes it's more expensive to do it.
Yeah. And Rufus, when Nikki mentions they call it fees,
Yeah.
what happens is oftentimes what happens with responsible loans, with these loans, the fees are fees on you prepaying down your principal. So even if you want to prepay your principal, you keep drowning because they slap you with more fees. So unfortunately, that's what Nikki says. They call it fees,
Yeah.
but in any other loan or credit line of credit that you may have your credit cards, they would never penalize you for prepaying your principal.
And that's why it's important that these things get all disclosed up front. So you know what it is and know what decisions to make around it. Nikki, you've talked about supporting communities being a core value of Momentum Coffee. Talk about how this issue affects communities at large outside of just small businesses.
Well, small businesses are economic drivers, right? They hire people from and in the community, just like Momentum Coffee. When we are losing money that we can't afford to lose or paying percentages higher than what's anticipated, there's an impact.
Yeah.
What is that impact? The first thing that's going to happen is you're looking at your labor, which is one of your highest costs. So the very people that you wanted to hire, the very people that you wanted to help, hours get cut, or you have to cut those positions. sometimes what happens for business owners that have opened up, you see the grand opening and then you see that quiet closing. Why? Because they're suffering in silence for these loans that they didn't realize they were getting into. And then that space that was an investment, a physical investment in the community, now is vacant once again. We know what that looks like in our communities. So that investment in our people, and also the investment in what we're bringing to the community. I believe every community deserves quality coffee, tea, and pastries, right? We're not there to be able to provide that service as well. It's one of the things that people don't always see about a small business, that what they need for their funding behind the scenes. Ultimately, what it does as well, and we talked about this, is the wealth building aspect of those small businesses and their ability to continue to grow and serve their communities. That is taken away when there is unpredictability and when there are rates that are not clear and transparent. There's a negative impact for our businesses.
Very important. When we think about small businesses, and to your point, I heard a wonderful interview of J.B. Pritzker, our governor. And when they mentioned his business, he's a billionaire. They mentioned his father. And he said, we didn't begin as this big hotel chain. We began as small motels. All big businesses begin as small businesses. And so the ability to move forward becomes so critically important in that. And I don't think it came through clearer than hearing the governor, the current billionaire governor, talk about it in the way in which he did. Jerry, this bill has now passed the Senate in 2024, but it's faced an uphill battle in getting through the House for several years. What makes this year different, and what can we do to help?
What makes this year different is the economic environment and climate that we're in, especially in the last year and a half. We have rising gas prices. We have unaffordability of small business owners because of the tariffs. We have businesses eating the costs from healthcare because they can't afford to pay their employees. And so they have rising healthcare costs, but their wages aren't able to keep up, when they would rather support their small businesses with what Nikki said, benefits, because they see their employees like family. We also have the SBA cutting back the number of individuals. They won't say it, but it's cutting back, but it's essentially whittling down the number of individuals who can apply for loans because of new restrictions on owners due to their country of origin, but also putting restrictions on who their managing staff is and where their country of origin is. So you're whittling out more individuals who are eligible for funding from the SBA that is there to establish leveling the field. That's what the funding from the SBA is for, to support people who otherwise can't get funding elsewhere.
And what can we do to help?
What you can do to help is we would like small business owners to be aware of this bill, APR for All. Join the APR for All Coalition at aprforall.com. Contact Small Business Majority to share your stories with us. We need to hear from you that you would have taken a different loan had you known to compare apples to apples and oranges to oranges. We'd like you to call your representative in the House Assembly to tell them that you want APR for all as well. Things are unaffordable at this time, and having this bill would create a measure of equity for small business owners and help them find more affordable funding to build that wealth and generational wealth, especially in the state of Illinois.
Critically important. Jerry Aguilape?
Aglipai.
Close.
That's all right.
Jerry Aguilape, senior fellow at the Small Business Majority, and Nikki Bravo. You got a great name.
Thank
Nikki
you.
Bravo.
Yes.
Momentum Coffee. Check them out. Make sure you get them when they get into O'Hare. And so glad you all are here. This is important information. Happy to have you come in and happy to talk about it.
Thanks for having us.
Good to have you. Let's find out from Annette what's going on in the news. When we come back, it's a party, y'all. George Daniels is in the house. Billy Branch is on the phone. We're talking about the 63rd anniversary, our birthday of WVON. We'll be back right after this.